Hello, welcome. Hi. Looks like everyone's going to be shy and have their videos off, and that's totally fine. You can mute yourself for the moment, and then if you would like to ask a question, please feel free to type it in the chat. Or if we have a slightly smaller group live today, you can do the raise your hand reaction, or just unmute and ask any questions or anything that sort of stands out to you today. I just want to say hello and welcome to everyone. My name is Jade. I'm part of the team at Canada's Outdoor Learning Store. We're a charitable social enterprise that offers outdoor learning equipment and resources for educators and learners, whilst also supporting Canadian outdoor learning non-profit organisations. I also represent Take Me Outside. We're a non-profit organisation committed to raising awareness and facilitating action on nature connection and outdoor learning in schools across Canada. So anything outdoor learning, anything sharing environmental knowledge, that kind of thing, that's where we're at. Myself, I'm a scientist, an environmental educator, and outdoor instructor, and I write educational programs. I'm based in Revelstoke, BC. I'm joining today from the traditional and unceded territories of the Sinixt, the Silks, the Tanaha, and the Shishwemuk. And joining me today is Leah Japp, who is General Manager of Sask Outdoors. Leah lives on a small farm near Bethune. Is that the correct pronunciation? With her husband and 3 kids, Leah's got a background in training in outdoor and environmental education. Her family enjoys country life, camping, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, hiking, geocaching, canoeing, gardening, running, climbing snow hills. I've seen some video evidence of that. Snowball fights too, skating, tobogganing playgrounds, and swimming. I would say I enjoy all of those too, although my skating skills are minimal, if we're honest. Hello, good afternoon, Leah. Thanks.
Hello, welcome everyone.
I mean, and you're really the expert today. I'm just sort of facilitating here. Okay, let's dive in, because everyone's, had a busy day and things are going on. And Leah's put her acknowledgement in the chat there. Thank you. Let's dive in. So we're here to talk about tools and resources for Saskatchewan educators to make your outdoor learning the most productive and enjoyable it can be. And I would like to acknowledge that the province is in a bit of a difficult place health-wise at this moment, as other places around the country and the world have experienced to different degrees over the past couple of years. So firstly, we send our best thoughts and support to all those who have been impacted. And I think this ties in really to the sort of first point we wanted to talk about, but why is outdoor learning so important, Leah?
Well, I think you've kind of alluded to a big reason it's been so popular in the last few months, several months. It's just outdoor learning has been so important to our mental and emotional well-being during the pandemic. And I know for Sask Outdoors, we've seen a huge increase, especially last fall, of the number of teachers who are reaching out to us for support in getting outside. So people who were like a little bit on the fence, they're kind of interested, they knew it was probably a good thing, but they were looking for some supports on how to actually get outside with their students.
And that's fantastic. And I think it's really this, that there exists barriers to this, which we're going to talk a little bit about. So it's totally okay that people haven't taken their learning outside. It's totally understandable that there have been in the past some issues with that. But yes, this pandemic supporting physical, mental, emotional well-being of students, like I've experienced it personally, seeing that sort of physical and sort of psychological breath out when they've exited the classroom and gone out. And it doesn't have to be a mountain or a river. It could be just, your school playground or walk around outside the building. It could be anything. So talking about that, like, who can facilitate outdoor learning? Does it have to be in schools? Does it have to be sort of formalized?
I think anyone can. And I know Some of the people on this call are what you might call community educators, or people that do outdoor learning in the community, along with people who are in the school system. I think what Jade was saying, I'm always an advocate for nearby nature. This isn't answering the question, but so just going outside wherever you are. So I think sometimes in school settings, people think like, oh, there's just like a playground and a mowed lawn and some concrete. That's not outdoor ed. And I'm always an advocate that yes, it is. And going outside, it doesn't have to be this grandiose trip to experience the benefits. There's actually a study that's been shared with me a few times that like even having a planted pot is helpful for your emotional well-being and mental well-being. So we always try to make it as less intimidating, as minimal intimidation as possible. And often what you're already doing inside, you can take outside with a few extra considerations, and you might be even pleasantly surprised with the results by changing where you are doing the learning.
I like that a lot. I went to ride my bike, and there was a class who were doing part of their mathematics lesson, and they were doing that experiment where you have to flip a coin 100 times and note whether you get heads or tails. And they were just sat actually on the sort of paved area around a sort of backcountry toilet, I guess, washroom, but it was a nice flat area for them, and they were sitting like kneeling on knee pads, and they just had a book and they were doing their flicks, and it was just so nice to see math outside, you know, like it's all cross curricular, so much can go on. So talking about that, you know, what are the general barriers to outdoor learning? I mean, if it was hammering rain, paper and rain aren't the best friends, unless you're using writing the rain paper, for example. But what do you think are the biggest barriers, especially for Saskatchewan educators?
Well, as I was telling, as we were getting ready, I was telling Jade Duncan and I, Duncan is from Saskatchewan and works with Jade, about the wind in Saskatchewan. And we're like, it's just always windy here. And where I live right now, it is quite windy today. So the wind can be, I mean, I think it's less of a barrier than some of the other things that I might mention, but it's a constant friend. Yes. So like having rocks around to hold things down can be helpful. I think in Saskatchewan, most people go right to snow and winter. Well, more winter and the cold temperature. Unfortunately, we don't get much rain in Saskatchewan, or at least in my parts these last few years. We have had a decent amount of snow, but like the actual just cold can be a real challenge. And just like adults maybe aren't comfortable going out in the cold. And I think that might be more of the barrier than actually the cold. So trying to do I know in some of the workshops that I've done, we try to do some education around how to become comfortable yourself physically going outside when it's cold out, so that you can like share that and not let it, because if you're miserable as the educator outside, that session is not going to go great.
No, I understand. And for me, I grew up in a slightly even milder climate than here. It's still quite mild in BC where I am, but just layers, you know, just having again a warm layer, a windproof layer, that can make a huge difference. And I think we've talked a lot about like the potential for lending libraries, or going to your local thrift store and just having like a box on hand. Like for all of my programs, I just have a big bag full of things. If they get used, I wash them. But do you have anything like that that's available, or people could set up perhaps?
We certainly suggest it to people. Sask Outdoors does not have anything like that in our lending library, but I know lots of educators that we work with have that stash of things for outdoor weather ready to go.
And there's potential for some funding grants, or reach out to like local nonprofits or things to see whether that's something you could collaborate on. I mean, layers we talked about, making sure that you have, you know, good waterproofs, and I think that you don't get a lot of rain there, but just having sure that if snow comes, that you've got something that can shed that moisture. When you're out and about, what kind of landscapes do you think you spend most time in? Because I feel like the weather can, like, does the weather change quickly like it does in the mountains, or, you know, does the forecast generally true?
I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that. I feel like the weather can change quickly in Saskatchewan. And we have such varied landscapes. I was at a course over the weekend, and like, I live in the prairies, but some of the participants were from the forested areas. And so just different ecosystems. And we were talking about doing various activities, even how to pee outside if you got a tree. It's
Yes,
different than if you're in the prairies.
For sure. Yes, less things to hide behind, for sure.
Yes. Anyway, that's not your question.
I mean,
yeah, the things you need to be prepared, I think, when you're going outside. And sometimes having some things along can make the experience more helpful. I know the in thing in the early childhood world that I've been seeing lately is having a wagon handy that's just like ready to go with the things that you might need to go outside. And that can avoid a lot of just that, like, and last minute panicking. Like, do I have all the things? No, they're just in the wagon. And I know not older teachers of older grades will sometimes just have a backpack that's ready to go that has like the paperwork that they need, the first aid kit, whatever your school situation is, the things that you need to take out. I do that for myself, actually. I have a hiking backpack so that when my family wants to go, I grab it and I throw in some snacks and water. I decide if we're taking our dog and what if I need to take in or out things, and then we're ready to go.
I'm a big convert to the wagon situation. I'm seeing it in schools, and then as I'm going into an educator, I have my own one. I actually have a cute one. It's got like a little mascot on it, a little elf, and some fairy lights that are powered by a little solar thing if it's like dark and grey, and it changes between wheels and sled in the winter summer, so you can take it on the flats. It's made out of wood. It's a company in Calgary, actually, I think, that make them by hand. But that wagon, you know, if we are outside, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, it's definitely exacerbated if there's inclement weather. So having that box, I also find as well, then you can put the garbage in the bag or in the box inside the wagon, and it doesn't end up falling out of pockets and things like that. You know, kids who run hot can shed their extra layer, put it in the wagon, and then you know they can have it for when you stop and their temperatures cool down. So those specific barriers for Saskatchewan, we're thinking maybe more just wind as a specific thing to think about.
You also mentioned rain too, and we were talking about this on the weekend about how sometimes some schools, if there's just even a little bit of rain, we will rush inside. And the rain is actually, I mean, it's uncomfortable to be wet all the time. And so if you are prepared for rain, outside and muddy, rainy experiences outside can be some of the most fun that kids will have outside. And so with a little bit of prep.
Yes, it could do it. And we're going to move into some of the sort of practical things we're going to talk about. But for me, rain outdoors, when I do like sensory wake up activities, like rain and smell is just, that's really one of my favorites. It just gives you, I don't know, just a smell of freshness that I don't get any other time of year. I think it's really, maybe in the fall, maybe it's the fall rain that I love the most, especially after such a dry summer. I'm really, really appreciating that. Okay, so let's talk then. We've talked about identifying things that might be tricky and those feelings. So how can we overcome it with tools and resources? So what are some go-to tools and resources that you've employed in your work with Sask Outdoors to make outdoor learning more comfortable or fun or easy?
Well, I think the biggest one for me personally has been education and confidence building for myself. So I was also thinking about that this past weekend. And actually, it's a wilderness first aid course that I took that I feel like just really developed my skills so that I feel confident in a variety of situations. And then I'm not like stressed out about worrying about all these things because I feel like I have the skills to address hopefully everything that might come up while I'm out and about. And then I think that applies to
and I feel like
learning.
there's more. Sorry, I think we froze for a sec. I feel like there's lots of opportunities for that. There's Interpretation Canada courses, there's some online things. We're trying to run workshops through the nonprofit outdoor learning store about how we can best go outside in inclement weather and things like that. And I'm wilderness first aid trained, and I would say that changed the way that I view the environment and my understanding of actually how many resources exist out there for your use. But yeah, feeling capable, that professional development is huge. When you go outside to learn, do you plan really heavily?
I usually have a plan, but yes, I think that's about to change. I just took the Forest School of Canada training course, and it's a lot about free play and risky play and unstructured play. So I'm going through a bit of my own personal pedagogical confrontation internally. So I have no clear answer on that. But I do think it will continue to depend on the situation. I like to have a plan. But I feel like for me, having a plan opens me up to be flexible with whatever happens.
Yes.
What about you, Jade?
Oh gosh, and that's it. I'm a list, box checker, 5-minute increment planner kind of person. And then I started running outdoor programs where the weather changes in a minute and a half, from perfectly sunny to torrential rain. So I definitely have had to learn to let go. And I think that's one of the biggest things is feeling particularly in more formal education situations, that you need such a lot of structure. Everything has to be structured in order for it to have meaning. But I have been also developing my understanding of free play. And if you look at some of the books, I've got some different bits, but talking about things like the Big Book of Nature Activities, which is like you could just pick one, and then there's lots of opportunities. Take a piece of string and lie it along the ground and look at all the different species that you find. And you can then take that up a tree, or you can take a magnifier and look, or you can pretend to be an ant and shrink yourself down and see what it would feel like to walk through that landscape at that size. And all of these things are, waking up. And then you could say, okay, we're going to play ant tag, or they can just go and do their thing. I think there's just so many options when you're outdoors, and so many different perhaps variables that can come in. And whilst that might be scary, it can also just be a massive asset. One of the kids finds something interesting, then the whole lesson just basically revolves around you investigating that, which I love very much.
Do you have your natural curiosity book beside you? I do not, but that is a great resource for inquiry-based learning, and also includes a lot of land-based and indigenous.
Just 1 second, let me consult the other bookshelf. Yeah, and it involves Indigenous perspectives as well, right? So, and it's available in French and English. And I think what's fantastic is, what I love about this, you can even just see where I've opened it up, is there's a lot of dialogue where they talk about actual interactions between students and teachers, and how I found something interesting turned into an entire investigation about biodiversity. So that's a really special thing. David Sobel's The Sky Above, Mud Below, that sort of preschool, young age group, it's the same principle in there, talking about that investigative, follow your nose kind of experience. Like, that's really, really special. We'll move into more books as we go through. One of the biggest things for me is transitions. It's that I'm hot, I'm cold, getting everyone dressed to go outside, and then the potential of coming back in can be quite tricky. And I think that's where talking about wagons and taking everything you need and having a more extended period of time outside rather than in, out. And if it does start to rain, I always tell them, we're not made of sugar, we won't dissolve. And they just, brains work on that for a minute. Do you have any any sort of tips and tricks when you're getting outside that you utilize?
I think it depends. For education of the participants has been really helpful to me. I still, not during the pandemic, but just prior to, was leading winter outdoor things for adults and continuing to refine how I requested that they dress. So even with, I think sometimes it's like, I know how to dress to go outside in the winter or in whatever weather, but that education continues to be important for young people and for adults and for families. In all sorts of situations.
Good kit lists, right? Send a kit list out with a checklist box on it so that they can check it off, and some examples of what that actually looks like, what a insulated mitt looks like, as opposed to just a woolen mitt that if it gets wet, wool is very insulative, but if it's the only pair of they've got and it's a wet day, it's going to be a sad day for the hand that's in there. Things like having those boot heaters, those chemical hand and foot heaters as an emergency. Even just holding those can boost the morale of a child who's having a bit of a tough time. For me, I like to, when I'm guiding or anything, we start top to toe. And so I do this with the kids. I get them there. I'm like, does everyone have a hat? And I make them put it on. And then, okay, I've got a warm layer. Does everyone have an outer layer? Do we have our gloves going down? Do we have our pack or things in our pockets that we need? And, working the way all the way down until you're in your good shoes. And then potentially that repetition of that process gets them thinking themselves that next time they go out, they'll be like, oh, mum, I don't have my gloves. Which, if we can get that happening, then it's taking ownership, right? So then it's also social skills associated with, I wouldn't call it survival, but well-being, perhaps, at least. Games, I think one of the biggest things that I, again, had to address in my own pedagogical understanding was that games can equal learning. And, wind, let's talk about wind, alongside water is one of the most transformative processes of change in our landscape, of carving rocks and moving pebbles and making slopes change and blowing down trees. And so I make the kids turn into wind, right? I get them to think about directions. And if there's a strong wind blowing, I get them to turn into the wind and to think about where that feels like and if it's holding them up, and then to look in the direction of the wind. And can they see evidence of it? Can they hear it? Where's that wind going? Where has it come from? And then you can start talking about geography, or you can talk about character. You could do a whole play about wind. You can play wind tag, where they get tagged, they get blown away and have to do a little roly-poly, and then they can get picked up by another wind who tags them and they're released. I think it's just any game you can do, you can adapt to the environment that you're in, and just making it fun and relevant for the kids. So tools, prep yourself, do some courses, plan books, online resources. On the website of the Outdoor Learning Store, we have access to some resources there through our partners that you can access lesson plans, things like that will really help you to go outside with ease. And of course, we sell a lot of books that can help you with lesson planning if that's where you're heading. Okay, so we've talked about some tools. We've talked a little bit about physical based things like clothing, making sure you have enough of that. Equipment. Now, I feel like growing up, it was simpler. You just went out and played on the snow hill. You just slid around. I mean, we had snow in the UK in those days, but not anymore. Is there any equipment for you, Leah, that like when you're out that you're like, okay, I'm outdoors, this is the equipment I need with me?
Not really personally. Two things that I've been really liking lately are little like bug magnifier things for little people. I just feel like sometimes a walk can feel very long for them, or they get bored. And this just gives them like something to hold on to, a little mission. And then they are really interacting with the environment where they are. Or depending on the situation, I mean, you might not take anything, or you might, depending where you are and what the goals of your program are. But sometimes you can just walk by and you're not really seeing anything. But when you are looking for small things and you put them in there and you can magnify them, it can really help you develop a relationship with the thing. If the thing's a rock or a stick or a bug, get to know it better. So that's one. Yeah. And then personally, I'm really into my sit pad. I know this is like the old style, but
yes. And now we have an update. Look at this thing. It doesn't weigh anything, but it is packed with recycled foam. And it is the most comfortable thing I have ever sat on. Like, I took it out on a foraging workshop the previous weekend, and I don't know, it felt like outdoor throne when we were sitting and doing some sketching. But even those foamies have been that you've got have been so incredibly helpful for me as an adult, like doing snow science stuff and keeping yourself off the ground, and with kids. Also, I've seen them use them as frisbees and as mini sleds for snow hills. So that, multi-use tool. But I do think that's a big thing that I see now in classrooms, that lots of classrooms where I am have these sit pads, and it just makes a difference. It also helps kids space out, right? That's your spot, and I love doing activities like a sit spot where we go to the same place. Like if you go out every week or however frequently you're out, and you go and pick this one spot, and you can either pose a question like, how do you know what season it is, from your sit spot, looking around, identifying things, or even if it's just breathing. Sometimes I like to do, if we're under a tree, like if I was a tree, what would I think? And they sort of ponder and do that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm with you with the sit pads and these bug magnifiers as well. And these ones are designed so you can put water in them as well. So you can do, if you're doing like a wetland or pond study, you can utilize them too. You can also as well have two viewing options as well, so they can be shared. But I really agree with you of having something to hold on to. Also, there's some recycled clipboards and things in the store that do a really good job there. And you can clip sort of field guides or things that are even if it's raining, get things laminated and have it, and then it's reusable as well. You're not just wasting paper. Like that's a big thing for me. I've also got some mini binoculars. Now the magnification is not going to give you the best view of the moon, let's be honest. But for students, I've got quite child-sized hands anyway, but like the size of these are fantastic. And I've got these beautiful videos of kids just all in a line, like little mini birders having the best time ever. And I think that can really assist in getting them to engage in the world around them and being in the present for a moment. So I really quite enjoy that. Also, Indigenous perspectives. Okay, we're out there on the land, and particularly as tomorrow we approach Orange Shirt Day and the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. I definitely want to highlight how important it is to engage with Indigenous resources and perspectives. So we've been working with the partnership with Strong Nations, who are based on Vancouver Island, and they have bundles of these Indigenous written and illustrated books. And I think for you in Saskatchewan, where could teachers or people get information about Indigenous perspectives or learning in your neck of the woods? Where could they do that?
Well, each school Saskatchewan has an elder or a knowledge keeper, so we always encourage people to form a relationship with that person. We also look to the Office of the Treaty Commission for resources and things to share. And then I would also refer you to Sask Outdoors has a podcast called Let's Talk Outdoors. And it's not all Indigenous related, but there are a couple of episodes where we talk to Indigenous people. And I specifically asked them, like, I'm a white person and I want to incorporate this. What do we do? Like, how can I do this respectfully and responsibly? So those guests were Kevin Lewis, who is quite well known. He lives in northwestern Saskatchewan, and Garrick Schmidt, who lives near Regina-ish area in the south part. So those would be 2 episodes to have a listen to for more information.
Fantastic. And I think I've spoken to lots of teachers and personally, there can be some reticence there. There can be some discomfort and fear straight up about incorporating Indigenous perspectives. And I think one of the biggest, most resounding answers I've got from various different nations and elders is that firstly, try, share, respect and show that you acknowledge that there's this history and that you want to share it, and be just talk about provenance, talk about where you got that resource, talk about the person that wrote it, who was responsible, and that helps to continue on the level of understanding and the trail back to the origins of that story or that piece of knowledge. So I think that's can be really important. We also, I think I keep having this conversation with teachers about, well, how do I prove to the school board, or how do I prove to my principal that we're learning outside? And I think going outside is not a break from actual learning, that there's it's just take me outside with the things that says not all classrooms have 4 walls, and things like doing dirty teaching. That's a beginner's guide. Juliet Robertson, incredible, just wealth of knowledge in there. And messy maths. This is, outdoor, playful, any environment that you're in, if it's urban or rural, there's options for participating in these. Gillian Judson's A Walking Curriculum is literally just a paragraph, or not even of this, that a cracks walk or a things you love walk, and all you're doing is spotting, and it's about where you are and you connect to your environment around you. So if people were feeling nervous or uncomfortable about outdoor learning, what would your big piece of advice, Leah, be? Do you have something to share?
Become a member of Sask Outdoors.
I like this.
There's lots of resources out there.
Yes.
And talk to people who are already doing it. I think a lot of this work, confidence comes from working with mentors and people who are doing the things that you want to do. And I feel that everyone is welcoming and friendly and happy to help others who are at different places on the journey. And the Outdoor Learning Store has some great webinars coming up, which is always like an easy way to absorb a bit of information. And it's not always as impactful as doing things in person, but it is more accessible, and there's always tidbits that you can take away.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And that's it. It's part of our full outdoor learning workshop series, but the ones that move into, we're doing a lot or 2 that specify about teaching outdoors in winter when things are cold, with a couple of experts there, Dave Quinn and Pamela from Learning for a Sustainable Future. All registrations free, and there's plenty of prizes for attendees. Workshops are 60 minutes long and take place on Thursdays at 4 p.m. Pacific or 7 p.m. Eastern. For those of you who can't attend live, they're recorded and posted to the bottom of our website page, which I believe Leah is popping in the chat for us. Following the workshop, participants will receive a link, and you can receive a certificate of attendance for professional development. And even if you can't attend live, you can still request a certificate after if you watch it later. Yes, I mean, the other thing that I would like to say that you can do if you're a more formal teacher in schools is connect with Take Me Outside Day. So this is raising awareness about outdoor learning and encouraging teachers to take their students outside for 1 hour on October 20th. So it's coming up fast. It's the 11th annual Take Me Outside Day, and it's actually going to be a whole week of events in partnership with the Outdoor Learning Store and MEC. They're hosting a full week of speakers, activities and events that can engage your students between October 18 and 22nd. And big news is they've just released a very special guest, is that Jane Goodall is going to be participating in one of those live talks and sharing her wealth of knowledge. So what they're aiming to do is deepen connections with Indigenous perspectives, strengthen health and well-being, increase knowledge on climate change and the environment. And there's 3 different themes to focus on. So it's engaging for students of all ages. The other part of that is the Take Me Outside for Learning Challenge. So this is a commitment to ongoing outdoor learning throughout the school year, which involves taking your class out at least once a week. For teachers who sign up, you get a monthly professional development opportunities, resources, outdoor learning activity ideas, and more, like straight into your inbox. And you don't get overloaded. It's just one really neat, tidy little boom. This is for you. You can take this and you can use this. There's also a community practice, so any of the educators can interact, engage and learn from other teachers. Last year they had over 3,000 educators across the country, and we're really hoping to bolster that, and it's a great win-win for anyone involved. There's also amazing prizes if you get involved. Grand prize is a 4-day trip to Banff, $1,000 gift card to the Outdoor Learning Store, so you can buy all of these things. One thing I did forget to mention as well is water kits as well via water rangers. So there's things there to study earth and land and water, and even just play in muddy puddles. I think that's all I really had to talk about there. Take Me Outside also has a store. You can get these beautiful t-shirts and things, and the caps that yes, ask your teacher to take you outside. I was going to wear mine, but today our community is wearing orange, but they're like beautifully made and ethically produced in Canada with Canadian materials. So there's options there as well, and would make a good teacher gift for Christmas if you're one of these people that prep early. Is there anything else you'd like to add here, Leah, that we can share and connect our Sask Outdoors educators with?
I don't think so. Everyone who's left is a fan of Sask Outdoors. I'll put our social media links on here maybe, and
please do. And yes, I had quite a few 70+ registrants, so